There's a simulation study out of evolutionary biology that argues menopause didn't just happen to women. It actually saved them from an energy crisis that would have been worse than menopause itself. I know that sounds like it needs unpacking. It does. Give me a few minutes with it.
Hi there, I'm Tony Lee, and this is Hot Flasher, your daily menopause podcast that serves up fresh news, research, and wellness tips. I've built a daily news pipeline to find the latest on women's health and menopause research. Allow me to introduce my co-host, Nykki, who handles the headlines. Take it away, Nykki.
Thanks, Tony. We've got a genuinely interesting mix today. Let's get into it. I want to start with the strange one because it deserves some space. There's a simulation study just published, Edward Hagen, July 2026, in what appears to be an evolutionary biology or life history context. And the title alone stopped me. Menopause averted, a midlife energetic crisis with help from older dependent children and parents. Averted, as in menopause was the solution, not the problem. This runs counter to how most women experience the conversation about menopause, which tends to frame it as a kind of biological withdrawal, a winding down, a loss of function. The evolutionary puzzle has always been, why would natural selection favour an organism that stops reproducing decades before it dies? Other mammals don't really do this. So, what's going on with humans? The hypothesis Hagen is modelling through simulation isn't entirely new. It draws on threads from life history theory and the grandmother hypothesis. But the framing here is pointed. The argument is roughly this. Midlife women face a compounding energy burden. You've got older dependent children who still need significant investment. You've also got ageing parents who may need care. Layer reproductive effort on top of that. The metabolic cost of pregnancy, nursing, caring for an infant, and you're looking at an energetic load that the model suggests would be genuinely unsustainable. The simulation finds that ceasing reproduction in midlife, rather than being a failure of the system, may have actually improved survival and the fitness of the offspring already born. Now, and this is important, this is a simulation study. It is modelling a theoretical scenario using assumptions built into the model. It is not a clinical trial. It is not tracking real women over time. The conclusions are only as good as the premises the researchers fed in, and those are worth scrutinising if you can get to the full text. What it offers is a plausible evolutionary narrative, not proof. That said, I find the framing genuinely worth sitting with because there's a cultural tendency to talk about menopause as something the body does wrong, like a machine breaking down. This model gestures toward the opposite, that what looks like cessation might have been, across evolutionary time, optimization, that the body stopping one thing was the condition for other things, support, survival, intergenerational investment, to continue. Whether that reframe is useful to someone in the middle of a hot flash at 3 a.m. is a fair question. But for the broader conversation about how we understand what menopause is, I think the evolutionary lens is underused. The medical framing dominates so completely that we rarely hear the alternative. This study is worth reading if you have any interest in how we got here. Female athletes are where I want to go next because there's a clinical review out this week that I think deserves more attention than it'll probably get. Published June 29th, 2026 by Sylvester et al., the paper is called Female Athletes Through the Lifespan, Clinical Considerations and a Call for Comprehensive Sports Medicine Healthcare. And the title is doing exactly what it says. This is a call out. Sports medicine as a field has been slow to account for the fact that female bodies change significantly across the lifespan and that those changes have real clinical implications for injury risk, recovery, training, adaptation, and performance. The paper covers a lot of ground: the menstrual cycle, bone health, the female athlete triad, pregnancy, postpartum return to sport. But for the purposes of this show, the section on perimenopause and menopause is the one that stands out, because it's largely absent from clinical sports medicine protocols. The estrogen shifts that drive so much of what we talk about on this show, the connective tissue vulnerability, the changes in muscle protein synthesis, the bone density trajectory, these are not systematically integrated into how sports medicine practitioners work with active women in their 40s and 50s. This matters beyond elite sport. Most of the women listening to this show are not professional athletes, but a huge number of you are active, running, lifting, cycling, doing Pilates, playing recreational tennis, hiking, and you are trying to stay active through perimenopause and beyond, which is genuinely one of the best things that evidence supports for long-term health. And yet, the clinical infrastructure to support that isn't there. Your sports medicine doctor may have no specific training in how hormonal changes in midlife alter your injury risk. Your orthopedist probably doesn't ask where you are in your menopause transition when you come in with a torn ACL. And research suggests women's ACL injury risk, for instance, has documented connections to hormonal cycling. That's not a fringe claim, it's been in the literature for years, but it's still not standard intake information. The review is a call for the field to do better. I'm with it. My position on this is simple. Any clinical framework that treats women's bodies as male bodies with different reproductive plumbing is going to miss things consistently. And in sports medicine, those misses show up as injuries, as incomplete rehab, as women being told to back off activity at exactly the life stage where they most need to be moving. The third item today is the most clinically practical, and if you or someone you know is on denosumab for bone density, it's worth your full attention. Denosumab, sold under the brand name Prolia, is a biologic injection given every 6 months that significantly reduces fracture risk in postmenopausal women with osteoporosis. It works by inhibiting a protein involved in bone breakdown. It's effective. For many women, it's the right treatment. The problem is discontinuation. When you stop denosumab, you don't just lose the benefit gradually. Bone turnover rebounds, sometimes dramatically, and that rebound can cause rapid bone loss, and in some cases, multiple vertebral fractures. This is not a rare footnote. It's a real enough risk that discontinuation of denosumab without a transition plan is considered poor practice by most bone specialists. The question has always been, what's the best bridge? A randomized trial published June 29, 2026 by Ferrari et al. Looked at this directly. They gave postmenopausal women stopping denosumab either a single infusion of zoledronate, that's an IV bisphosphonate, brand name reclassed, or placebo, and followed them for 2 years. Critically, they included women who had taken bisphosphonates before denosumab and women who hadn't, because prior exposure can affect how the bones respond. The finding: a single zoledronate infusion at the time of stopping denosumab substantially prevented the post-denosumab bone loss rebound in both groups. 2-year data. Randomized design? That's the kind of evidence your doctor would look at on a tool like open evidence. Actual trial data on a specific clinical decision, not expert opinion or case series. This matters practically because the transition question, what do you do when you stop Prolia, is one that prescribers and patients face regularly. Women stop denosumab for various reasons: cost, side effects, a decision to switch treatments, a gap in access. And up until fairly recently, The evidence on the best bridging strategy was messier than it should have been for such a consequential question. A 2-year RCT with a clear outcome is useful. What I want to flag, and I'll say this plainly, is that if you are on denosumab and thinking about stopping for any reason, this is not a decision to make without a specific conversation with your prescribing doctor about transition planning. Not a general checkup conversation, a specific one. What happens to my bone density when we stop this, and what's the plan? The rebound risk is real. The data on how to mitigate it is now stronger, and you deserve a doctor who knows it.
Thanks for listening to Hot Flasher. We're back tomorrow with more, so don't forget to subscribe. See you tomorrow.